1972, Richard Milhouse Nixon, who was then President of the United States of America, became involved in one of the most scandalous events of that time. It was called Watergate. Nixon didn't resign because of Watergate. He resigned because he got caught in a web of lies. And those lies continued. Bob Woodward, a national journalist, wrote a book entitled All the President's Men. And he won a Pulitzer Prize as a result of it. And here we are again. Once lies start, it's hard to tell the truth for many politicians because they don't want to be perceived as being weak. They want to appear to be invincible, infallible. And they want individuals to think that there is no fallibility with them. But this is the problem. You can keep on lying, but ultimately, the lies catch up with them. Everyday people in a court of law, when they are caught committing perjury, swiftly, execution of sentence is given by an outraged judge. But when the political pontificators keep lying about any and everything, they want to hide behind the Constitution and cry foul, blaming everything, everyone, and everybody for their problems. Tyrone Bowman Live. Welcome to the conversation. Welcome to the program. And oh, by the way, what happened to the black security officer who discovered the break-in at the National Democratic Committee? His life was destroyed simply for doing his job. When you do your job in this world, you're not going to be praised. They call them whistleblowers. Really, they're truth tellers. And Richard Nixon got caught in the web of lies. The tapes, the infamous tapes where he was using the N-word and slinging it around. He was a vitriolic racist, like the government was giving out free cheese. Listen to this from MSNBC. Get it queued up. I don't know if there are commercials in here or not. If there are, I'll try to quickly remove them. I call it LeakGate.
The exploding security scandal engulfing the Trump administration. It's only 2 days old, if you can believe that. Now, Trump officials are desperately, and I mean desperately, trying to pretend that sharing attack plans on a non-secure app where a journalist happens to be present, that's a key part of this. It's that they shared it on the app and the journalist happened to be present. That's how we know about it. But they're all pretending like this is no big deal. And their answers, I have to say, are leaving a whole lot to be desired and frankly just raising more questions.
The White House and the president's national security team doubling down on efforts to shift blame surrounding that Signal chat debacle.
But certainly the topic is of a nature in which you would not want our adversaries to know.
Current and former defense officials tell me these operational details shared in an unclassified setting would be considered a breach in national security.
It confirms our darkest assumptions about mishandling of sensitive military operations.
Now, for 2 days, it's only been 2 days old, Trump and his team have repeatedly denied that any classified information, any problematic information, was really shared in that chat. And so today, The Atlantic released more text, unredacted, that revealed discussions of weapons used, targets, and timing. And I can tell you that is problematic information to be discussing in an unsecure atmosphere and environment. Now, all the information that any national security expert most would tell you would that should be considered classified at the time because they're so specific and they're detailed and they could put people's lives at risk. We're going to show you the text with the actual military actions they're describing because I think it's important to see them. So Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth wrote, quote, "Team update, time now, 11:44 Eastern. Weather is favorable. Just confirmed with CENTCOM. We are go for mission launch. 12:15 Eastern. F-18s launch. First strike package." He then goes on to describe more F-18 and drone strikes. Hegseth then continues to update the chat. 14:10, military time, of course. More F-18s launch. Second strike package. 14:15, strike drones on target. This is when the first bombs will definitely drop. 15:36, F-18 second strike starts. Also, first sea-based Tomahawks launched. You can see the missiles launched right there on the screen. And adding, we are currently clean on OPSEC, meaning operational security. Boy, that one doesn't age so well, does it? Now there you have it. Those are very detailed. That is exactly what was published from the Atlantic. Those are specifics of what was on this group chat. Now the transcript of the Signal chat released just this morning completely, obviously, undercuts those repeated denials from Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth, and others. In releasing the information, which the Atlantic had originally withheld because of the operational details, they cited a clear public interest in disclosing the information. Trump officials were also back on the Hill today, where they got grilled by Democrats, many calling for Hegseth to resign.
It is outrageous, and it is a leadership failure.
I would argue that Secretary Hegseth, if he had the dignity that he needs to have, should be walking his resignation in, because I believe that his probably is heading toward being relieved of his duty based on what I think are significant and illegal leaks.
Nobody is willing to come to us and say this was wrong. This was a breach of security, and we won't do it again.
He needs to resign immediately, and a full investigation needs to be undertaken.
Now, Congressman Jason Crow's answer there, that sticks with me because nobody's acknowledged wrongdoing here. There are lots of things wrong, but that's a big one of them. Earlier this morning, the Atlantic's Jeffrey Goldberg, who of course was the journalist who was added to the text chain and wrote the piece on Monday, also highlighted the dangers of sharing military plans in an unsecured chat.
Like, imagine this text went to someone else. If that's not secret, classified information about, or the most sensitive kind of government information in the world, I don't know what is. This is operational details about a forthcoming attack on an enemy that has anti-aircraft capabilities.
Now, Goldberg also wrote today, quote, if this had been received by someone hostile to American interests or someone merely indiscreet, the consequences for American pilots could have been catastrophic. The Pentagon guidelines, by the way, on what constitutes classified information are actually pretty clear and include disclosure of significant military plans or intelligence operations.
This text message is clearly classified information. Secretary Hegseth has disclosed military plans as well as classified information.
Targets, times, those kinds of things are absolutely classified, and we all know it.
There is no way, having sat on this committee for 9 years, that somebody would come in with that information and give us something that says unclassified. You can walk out of this room with this information and give it to whomever you want. Y'all know that's a lie. It's a lie to the country.
Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Jimmy Gomez, member of the Intel Committee, who was part of today's hearing, and Samantha Vinograd, former Assistant Secretary for Counterterrorism, Threat Prevention, and Law Enforcement Policy at the Department of Homeland Security. Both certainly know how classified information should work and how it travels. Congressman, let me start with you. We showed a number of clips from that hearing today. It felt to me from reading the coverage there weren't a lot of questions answered. There's a lot of obfuscation, if you could say. Did you learn anything from the hearing, and what did you think of their answers?
I don't think they didn't answer anything. And second, it just doesn't pass the smell test. This is something that's so rational. One, they were first denying that they had this conversation until the report came out. Two, they're denying that there was any kind of targeting information, what weapons were used. And then even just yesterday, Tulsi goes on, uses the I don't recall defense. You've been on the job 43 days. This happened 10 days ago. You were using Signal not to plan where you guys are going to go for lunch, but to launch an military operation using lethal force. This doesn't make sense on any level, and they're straight up lying to the American public about it.
The I don't recall really doesn't pass the smell test, so just take your words. Sam, one of the explanations they've given, or the kind of strategies they've had here, should I say, is to say no one was hurt. The operation was successful. This just shows us policy discussion and debate and coordination. You've been in these rooms. You've sat in these meetings. You know how this information is supposed to travel. Why is information traveling over a channel like this, putting people at risk?
Classified or sensitive information is meant to be discussed and transmitted on classified channels, not encrypted ones, because information is classified, Jen, based on the perceived harm its unauthorized disclosure could do to U.S. national security. Look at where we are today. The entire world now knows about internal communications among senior national security officials in the United States.
Including the vice president.
Including the vice president, national security advisor. It's not like we have that kind of insight into how Kremlin officials are discussing battle plans or how the People's Republic of China is having policy deliberations. And by having these kinds of conversations in insecure ways, you open up these communications to exploitation by bad actors, foreign governments, criminal networks who can use it to gain an advantage on the battlefield, to gain insights into how the U.S. government is working, and more. Classified information and sensitive information should stay in secure places.
One of the things I've been wondering about is how many other signal chats were there possibly? I mean, this...
All right, I'm going to leave it right there, and I'm going to say this in closing. What do you think would have happened if this same scenario occurred during the Obama administration? You know darn well what would have happened. That racist, bigoted, MAGA Republican Senate Judiciary Committee would have demanded an investigation. This is a travesty. This is treacherous. This is an outrage. We demand that Barack Hussein Obama resign the presidency immediately. And we demand that everybody who participated in the leakage of classified information be fired. You know it, and I know it. The obstructionists are lying, and they're going to continue to lie. They'll continue. The reason why they don't want to cooperate with the Democrats is because they'll be perceived before their base as being weak and being conciliatory. Never mind the fact that if a Democrat does something on that same verge, you would hear such an outrage from Johnson and Lindsey and decrepit Mitch McConnell and everybody else. They'd have a whole lot to say. If this had happened during the Biden administration, during the presidential campaign, they would have had a whole lot to say. And the reason why the Republican Party is going to be defeated during the midterm elections, and they're going to be defeated in the 2028 elections as well, is because of stuff like this. Never surrender. Never quit.